The morning sun painted the sky red over New Seoul Colony. Dae-ho Kim walked slowly through the dusty streets carrying a small bag on his shoulder. His dark eyes looked tired and scared. Today was the day he would leave his home forever. 3 weeks ago, the sickness came to their world. It spread fast through the human settlement like fire through dry grass. People got sick and died quickly. The medicine they had was not enough. Food became hard to find. Water was getting dirty. The colony leaders had to make hard choices. Elder Jamin Park called all the people to the center square. His voice was loud, but his face looked sad. He said they did not have enough supplies for everyone. Some people had to leave so others could live. Dae-ho was only 16 years old. He was small and thin, not strong like the other boys his age. His hands were soft because he worked with computers, not with heavy tools. The council said he was not useful enough to keep. They said he would just use up food and water that stronger people needed. Nari ran up to Dae-ho near the colony gates. Her long black hair flew behind her as she moved. Tears ran down her face. She had been his best friend since they were little children. "This is wrong," she said, grabbing his arm. "You are smart. You help fix our computers and machines. They cannot just throw you away." Dae-ho looked at her with sad eyes. "Your father already decided?" The council voted. "I have to go." Nari's father, Hyun-soo, walked over to them. He was a big man with strong arms from working in the mines. His face was hard like stone, but Dae-ho could see pain in his eyes. "The boy has to leave now," Hyun-soo said. His voice was quiet. "We gave him supplies. He has water for 3 days and some food. Maybe he will find another settlement." "But father, the wild lands are dangerous," Nari said. "The big animals will kill him. The heat will cook him. How can he survive alone?" Hyun-soo looked away. "That is not our problem anymore. We have to think about our own family first." Dae-ho put his hand on Nari's shoulder. "Do not be angry with your father. He is trying to save you and your little brother. I understand." But inside, Dae-ho felt like his heart was breaking. These people had watched him grow up. They had eaten meals with his family. They had celebrated holidays together. Now they were sending him to die because he was not strong enough to be worth saving. Elder Jamin came to the gate with 5 other people who were also being sent away. There was old woman Minja who could barely walk. There was young Sang-ho who had lost his arm in an accident. There was Bo-ram, a girl who was always getting into trouble. There was sick man Woo-jin who coughed all the time. And there was Dae-ho. "You have supplies for the journey," Elder Jamin said. His voice tried to sound kind, but it was just empty words. "Follow the old mining road east. Maybe you will find the Zenthari trading post. They might help you." Everyone knew the Zenthari aliens did not care about weak humans. They only traded with people who had something valuable to offer. What could a sick old woman or a thin boy give them? The big metal gates opened with a loud sound. Beyond them, the red desert stretched out like an ocean of dust and rocks. The twin suns were already getting hot, even though it was still morning. In the distance, tall mountains rose up like the teeth of some giant monster. "Please," Nari said one more time. "Let him stay. I will share my food with him." "Enough," her father said, pulling her back. "The decision is made." Dae-ho walked through the gate. The other exiled people followed him. Bo-ram was crying. Old Minja was praying to the spirits. Sang-ho just looked angry at everyone. The gate closed behind them with a final sound like thunder. Dae-ho turned around one more time to look at his home. He could see Nari pressing her face against the metal bars, still crying. Other people watched from windows and doorways, but they looked away when he tried to meet their eyes. "So this is how it ends," Dae-ho said to himself. "My own people throw me away like broken garbage." The group started walking down the old mining road. It was made of broken stones and metal pieces from long ago. Their feet kicked up dust with every step. The hot wind blew sand in their faces. After 2 hours, old Minja could not walk anymore. She sat down on a rock and would not get up. "Leave me here," she said. "I am too old and tired." "We cannot just leave you," Dae-ho said. "Yes, you can," she replied. "Save your water and food. Maybe you young ones can make it to safety." Bo-ram helped Dae-ho carry Minja for another hour, but she was right. The old woman was too heavy and weak. They had to leave her by the side of the road with some water and food. They all knew she would die there alone. Sang-ho left the group next. He said he was going to try to find some cave people he had heard about. Woo-jin was coughing too much and could not keep up. Soon it was just Dae-ho and Bo-ram walking together. The twin suns climbed higher in the sky. The heat became like a heavy blanket pressing down on them. Their water was getting low. Deho's feet hurt in his thin shoes. Boram was breathing hard. Why did they really send us away? Boram asked as they walked. Deho thought about it. Because when people are scared, they become cruel. They look for someone weak to blame. It makes them feel better about themselves. That is stupid, Boram said. Yes, it is, Deho agreed. But that is how people are. They talk about being good and caring, but when things get hard, they show their true faces. As the day went on, they saw big flying shapes in the sky. These were the rock eagles that could carry away a full-grown man. They heard strange howling sounds from the mountains. These were the sounds of creatures that hunted in packs and could smell blood from far away. Deho began to think that maybe the council was right about one thing. Maybe he was too weak to survive in this hard world. Maybe it would have been better to die quickly in the colony than slowly in the desert. But then he remembered something his grandfather used to say. A tree that bends in the storm does not break like the tree that tries to stand straight. Maybe being small and weak was not always bad. Maybe there were different kinds of strength. As the red sun began to set, painting the sky purple and gold, Deho heard something that made his blood turn cold. It was the sound of heavy footsteps on stone coming from the mountains ahead. Something big was moving in the darkness between the rocks. Something ancient and powerful, watching them from the shadows. The ground shook under their feet. Deho grabbed Boram's arm to keep her from falling. The heavy footsteps were getting closer. Each step made the loose rocks jump and roll down the mountainsides. What is that? Boram whispered. Her face was white with fear. Deho looked around for a place to hide. There were some big rocks near the road, but they were too small to hide behind. The old mining road had no trees or buildings. They were standing in the open like two small mice in a field. The footsteps stopped. Everything became quiet. Even the wind stopped blowing. Deho could hear his own heart beating fast in his chest. He could hear Boram breathing quick and scared beside him. Then a shadow fell over them. Something huge was standing on the rocks above the road. Deho looked up slowly, afraid of what he might see. What he saw made his mouth fall open and his legs feel weak. It was a dragon. The dragon was bigger than any building in New Sol Colony. Its body was covered in scales that looked like melted copper and gold. They shined in the light from the setting suns. Its neck was long and powerful, reaching high into the red sky. Its wings were folded against its back, but Deho could see they were wide enough to block out the light. But it was the dragon's eyes that made Deho forget how to breathe. They were like two burning stars, bright blue and white with tiny flames dancing inside them. When the dragon looked down at him, Deho felt like those eyes could see right through him to his soul. Boram made a small crying sound and fell to her knees. "We are going to die," she said. "It is going to burn us to nothing." But the dragon did not breathe fire. Instead, it climbed down from the rocks with slow, careful movements. Its huge claws made deep marks in the stone. When it reached the road, it lowered its great head and looked at the two humans closely. Deho wanted to run, but his feet would not move. He wanted to scream, but no sound came from his mouth. He just stood there looking up at the most beautiful and terrible thing he had ever seen. Then something amazing happened. Words appeared in Deho's mind, but they were not his words. The voice was deep and old, like the sound of mountains talking to each other. "Do not fear me, small one," the voice said inside his head. "I am Kithara. I have been watching you." Deho's eyes went wide. "You can talk in my mind?" "Yes," the dragon replied. "It is the old way of speaking. Words with the mouth are for simple thoughts. Words with the mind are for true understanding." Boram was still on her knees, shaking with fear. She could not hear what the dragon was saying to Deho. To her, it was just a giant monster that could kill them both without trying. "Why were you watching us?" Deho asked with his thoughts. Kithara moved her huge head closer. Her breath was warm but did not smell like fire. It smelled like old caves and deep earth and something clean like rain. "I felt your pain," she said. "When your people sent you away, your sadness reached me in my mountain home. I wanted to see what kind of creature could feel so deeply." "I am just a weak human boy," Deho said. "There is nothing special about me. That is why they threw me out." The dragon made a sound like distant thunder. Deho realized she was laughing, but not in a mean way. "Weak?" Kithara said. "You think you are weak because you are small? You think you are useless because your muscles are not big? Child, you understand nothing about real strength." She lifted her head and looked out at the desert where old Minja had been left to die. where Sang-Ho had walked away alone, where so many others would die because they could not survive in the wild. Your people judge strength by the body, the dragon continued. They think big muscles and hard fists make someone valuable. But dragons do not think this way. We measure strength by what burns inside the spirit. What do you mean? Daeho asked. You could have been angry when they sent you away. You could have cursed them and wished them harm. But instead you understood why they did it. You forgave them even as they hurt you. That is the fire of a strong soul. Daeho felt tears in his eyes. No one had ever said he was strong before. All his life people had told him he was too small, too weak, too soft for the hard world. When you carried the old woman, even though she slowed you down, I saw compassion. When you comforted your friend, even though your own heart was breaking, I saw wisdom. When you did not give up walking even though your feet hurt and your water was low, I saw determination. The dragon lowered her head until her great eye was level with Daeho's face. He could see his own reflection in that burning blue eye. But somehow he looked different. He looked braver. These are the things that matter, young human. Not the size of your arms or the loudness of your voice. Dragons have lived for thousands of years. We have seen empires rise and fall. We know what makes someone truly strong. Boram was still crying and shaking. She kept saying prayers to whatever spirits she believed in. Daeho felt sorry for her, but he could not look away from the dragon's amazing eyes. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because I want to offer you something. Kithara said. You can die out here in the desert like your people expect. You can become food for the rock eagles and sandwolves, or you can choose a different path. What kind of path? The dragon's eyes grew brighter. You can bond with me. You can become something new, something that your people have never seen before. But I must warn you, the choice cannot be undone. If you accept my bond, you will never be the same again. Daeho thought about his old life in New Seoul. He thought about the people who had sent him away to die. He thought about Nari crying at the gate. He thought about all the times he had been called weak and useless. What would happen to me? He asked. Your body would become stronger, but that is the smallest change. Your mind would grow. You would learn things that no human has ever known. You would see the universe as dragons see it, but most important, you would have a purpose. You would become a guardian. A guardian of what? Of all the small and weak creatures that the strong ones throw away. Of all the gentle souls that the cruel ones try to crush. Of all the dreamers that the practical ones call useless. Daeho looked at Boram, still shaking with terror. He thought about old Minja dying alone by the roadside. He thought about all the people back in the colony who were scared and hungry and desperate. If I become this guardian, he said, could I help them? Could I save the people who threw me away? That would be your choice to make, Kithara replied. A true guardian protects everyone, even those who do not deserve it. Even those who have hurt them. The night was getting darker. The twin moons were rising over the mountains, casting silver light on the dragon's beautiful scales. Somewhere in the distance, a rock eagle called to its mate. Daeho took a deep breath. I accept your bond. The dragon smiled, showing teeth like white cliffs. Then let us begin, little guardian. Let us show the universe what real strength looks like. Kithara touched her great nose to Daeho's forehead. Immediately, light began to flow between them like liquid fire. Daeho felt power rushing through his body, changing him from the inside out. The weak human boy was about to become something extraordinary. The light that flowed between Daeho and Kithara felt like warm honey mixed with lightning. It started at his forehead where the dragon touched him, then spread through his whole body. His bones felt stronger. His muscles felt like they were waking up after a long sleep. But the biggest change was in his mind. Suddenly, Daeho could see things he had never noticed before. He could see the tiny movements of insects in the rocks. He could smell water hidden deep underground. He could hear the heartbeats of small animals hiding in their burrows. The world had become bigger and more alive. Boram was still on her knees, but now she was staring at Daeho with wide eyes. Your eyes, she whispered. They are glowing. Daeho looked at his reflection in a piece of shiny metal from his pack. She was right. His eyes now had a soft blue light in them, like the dragon's eyes but smaller and gentler. The bond is made, Kithara said in his mind. Come, little guardian. We have much work to do. The dragon spread her great wings and lifted into the air. She flew slowly so Daeho could follow her on foot. His new strength made walking much easier. His legs did not get tired and his breathing stayed normal even when climbing up steep rocky paths. Boram ran after them. Wait, she called. Do not leave me alone out here. Daeho stopped and looked back at her. You can come with us if you want. But the path we are taking is not easy. Easier than dying alone in the desert, Boram replied. They followed Kithara up into the high mountains. The air became cold and thin, but Daeho found he could breathe just fine. His new body was adapting to the changes. Boram had more trouble, so Daeho carried her pack along with his own. After climbing for many hours, they reached a huge cave opening in the side of a cliff. The cave was so big that Kithara could fly inside it without folding her wings. Deep inside, there were chambers carved from the living rock. Strange lights grew on the walls like glowing moss, making everything visible. This is my home, Kithara said. It has been my home for 300 years. Now it will be your school. The main chamber was filled with amazing things. There were books made from metal sheets covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. There were crystals that hummed with their own music. There were machines that looked like nothing Daeho had ever seen, made from materials that seemed to bend light around them. What is all this? Daeho asked. Knowledge, the dragon replied. Dragons do not just live long lives. We remember everything we see and learn. This cave holds the memory of 1,000 civilizations that have risen and fallen on 100 different worlds. Boram touched one of the glowing crystals and jerked her hand back. It is warm, she said. And it made my fingers tingle. Those crystals hold pure information, Kithara explained. Stories, histories, scientific discoveries, works of art. But they are not for human minds to touch directly. You would be burned by too much knowledge coming too fast. Daeho walked among the strange objects, feeling drawn to them but also afraid. How will I learn all this? Slowly and carefully, Kithara said. The dragon bond changed your mind, but it did not make you ready for everything at once. We will start with simple things and build your understanding step by step. For the first week, Daeho learned to control his new physical abilities. He could now jump 3 times higher than before. He could run for hours without getting tired. His hands were steady enough to thread a needle in the dark. But the most amazing change was his healing. When he cut his finger on a sharp rock, the wound closed in just a few minutes. Boram watched all of this with a mix of wonder and jealousy. Why did the dragon not choose me too? She asked one evening as they sat by a fire. The bond cannot be forced, Daeho explained. Kithara says dragons choose their partners very carefully. It is not about being better or worse. It is about being the right fit. But now you are becoming something special, and I'm still just ordinary Boram who gets in trouble all the time. Daeho looked at his friend. You are not ordinary. You followed me into the mountains when you could have stayed in the desert. You have been brave even though you are scared. That takes strength too. In the second week, Kithara began teaching Daeho about the wider universe. She showed him star maps that revealed how many worlds had intelligent life. She taught him about the different alien races and their strengths and weaknesses. Humans are young, she explained. Most other species have been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans were still learning to make fire. But youth is not always a disadvantage. What do you mean? Daeho asked. Older races become set in their ways. They think they know everything. They stop growing and changing. Humans are different. You adapt quickly to new situations. You find solutions that others cannot see because you approach problems with fresh minds. Daeho learned about the Zenthari, a race of traders who valued profit above everything else. He learned about the Corvins, warriors who conquered worlds to feed their empire. He learned about dozens of other species, each with their own strengths and flaws. Where do dragons fit in all this? He asked. Kithara's mental voice became sad. Dragons used to be guardians of the galaxy. We protected weaker species from stronger ones. We kept the balance between order and chaos, but we grew tired of the constant fighting. We saw too much cruelty and selfishness, so we withdrew from the galaxy and hid ourselves away. That seems lonely. It has been very lonely, the dragon agreed, but now I have hope again. The bond with you shows me that perhaps it is time for dragons to return to the galaxy, but this time, we will not work alone. In the third week, Daeho began learning to use technology that combined dragon knowledge with human creativity. Kithara taught him to build devices that should have been impossible according to what humans knew about science. How does this work? Daeho asked, holding a small device that could purify water and create breathable air from almost nothing. Dragons learned long ago that reality is more flexible than most beings believe, Kithara explained. What others call magic, we call applied consciousness. The mind, when properly trained, can influence matter and energy directly. Boram tried to use some of the simpler devices, but they would not work for her. I guess only special people can use dragon magic, she said sadly. Not special, Deho corrected. Just bonded. But Boram, you have skills that I do not have. You know how to fix things with simple tools. You know how to survive on very little. Those are important abilities too. As the days passed, Deho felt his mind expanding. He could solve complex problems that would have confused him before. He could see patterns in chaos. He could understand languages he had never heard before just by listening to their rhythm and flow. But with greater knowledge came greater responsibility. Kithara showed him images of what was happening in the galaxy. Wars between species, planets stripped of their resources, weaker races enslaved by stronger ones. The Corvan Empire is expanding again, she told him one evening. They have discovered new weapon technology that makes them nearly unstoppable. Soon they will come to worlds like yours, taking what they want and destroying what they cannot use. Deho felt cold fear in his stomach. Will they come to Korath Prime? Will they attack New Sol Colony? Yes, Kithara said simply. Their scouts have already marked your world for resource extraction. They care nothing for the colonies already there. To them you are all just obstacles to be removed. When? Deho asked. Soon. Perhaps 2 months, perhaps 3. Deho thought about Nari and her little brother. He thought about all the people in the colony who had cast him out, but who did not deserve to die. He thought about the other settlements on the planet, filled with beings from many different species just trying to live their lives. I have to warn them, he said. Warning them will not be enough, Kithara replied. The Corvans have weapons that can destroy cities from orbit. Your people have nothing that can stop them. Then what can we do? The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. We can teach them what we have learned, little guardian. We can show them that strength comes not from weapons or numbers, but from unity and purpose. And if that is not enough, we can remind the galaxy why dragons were once feared as well as respected. Deho looked out through the cave opening at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere among those points of light, a war fleet was preparing to destroy everything he had ever known. His training was about to become much more serious. 2 months had passed since Deho began his training in the dragon's cave. His body was now strong and quick like a wild cat. His mind could solve problems that would take other people hours to figure out. But the most important change was in his heart. He no longer felt like the weak boy who had been thrown away. He felt like someone who could make a difference. Boram had also grown stronger during their time in the mountains. She could not use dragon magic, but she had learned to build things with the strange materials in Kithra's cave. Her hands were clever with tools, and her mind was good at seeing how things fit together. On a cold morning, Kithara woke Deho with urgent thoughts. They have come, she said in his mind. The Corvan ships have entered your star system. Deho sat up quickly. Through their mental bond, he could see what the dragon was seeing. Far above the planet, dark shapes were moving among the stars. The Corvan fleet looked like a swarm of metal insects, each ship bristling with weapons. How many ships? Deho asked. 50 warships and 20 cargo vessels, Kithara replied. They are not here to explore or trade. They are here to take everything of value and destroy what remains. Boram was awake now too. She could see the worry on Deho's face. What is happening? The aliens who want to strip our world have arrived, Deho explained. We need to get down to the settlements and warn everyone. But what can they do against such powerful enemies? Boram asked. The colony has no real weapons. They have some old mining equipment and a few small transport ships. How can they fight a whole fleet? Kithara lowered her great head to look at both humans. There are things about your species that you do not know, she said, speaking aloud so Boram could hear too. Things that the Corvans do not know either. What do you mean? Deho asked. The dragon moved to one of her crystal memory banks. She touched it with her claw, and images appeared in the air like ghosts made of light. The images showed a beautiful world covered with great cities that reached into the clouds. This was Earth, your home world, 20,000 years ago, Kithara said. Before the Great Forgetting. Deho stared at the images. The cities were more advanced than anything he had ever imagined. Ships moved between the stars like fish swimming in the ocean. People flew through the air with wings of pure energy. But Earth was never like that, Boram said. Everyone knows humans only learned to travel between stars 500 years ago. That is what you were taught, Kithara replied. But it is not true. Humans once had the greatest civilization in the galaxy. You built wonders that made other species jealous and afraid. More images appeared. These showed great battles in space. Human ships fought against fleets from dozens of other worlds. The humans were outnumbered, but their ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. What happened to them? Tejo asked, though he was afraid of the answer. The other species formed an alliance against humanity, Kithra said sadly. They feared that humans would eventually rule the entire galaxy. So they worked together to destroy your empire. The images showed human cities burning, great ships falling from the sky like broken stars, millions of people fleeing in small escape vessels that scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. Most of the human colonies were wiped out, Kithara continued. The survivors lost their technology and their history. Within a few generations, they forgot they had ever been great. They became scattered tribes on forgotten worlds, starting over from almost nothing. Tejo felt anger growing in his chest. So all the alien races that call us weak and primitive, they were the ones who made us this way. Yes, Kithara said. But they could not destroy what made humans special in the first place. They could take away your ships and cities, but they could not take away your adaptability. They could not take away your ability to work together. They could not take away your refusal to give up when things look hopeless. Boram was looking at the images with wonder and sadness. Are any of the great human worlds still out there? A few, Kithara replied. Hidden and protected, but most humans in the galaxy are like you, descendants of refugees who lost everything. The Corvins think you are easy prey because you seem weak and scattered. They do not know what you become when you are pushed too far. Suddenly, a new voice spoke in the cave. It was speaking in the common trade language that most species use to communicate with each other. Fascinating, the voice said. I had heard rumors about a dragon awakening, but I did not believe them until now. They turned to see a figure standing at the cave entrance. It was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and silver, and it wore a robe covered with pockets and small devices. I am Yujin of the Zenthari Science Council, the being said. I have been tracking the energy signatures from this location for days. Kithara growled low in her throat. Zenthari, you are far from your trading post, merchant. Yujin held up 2 of her hands in a peaceful gesture. I am not here to trade, Great Dragon. I am here to study. The bond between your species and humans is something that has never been recorded before. And what would you do with such knowledge? Tejo asked. His new dragon senses told him this alien was not lying, but she was also not telling the whole truth. I would use it to help, Yujin said. My people have been watching the Corvin expansion with growing concern. They are no longer content to conquer single worlds. They want to control entire star systems. Eventually, they will threaten even the Zenthari trade networks. So you want to use us as weapons against them, Boram said. I want to give you weapons to use against them, Yujin corrected. In my ship, I have technology that could help you fight back. But I need to understand how the dragon bond works first. Kithara studied the alien carefully. Dragons could sense lies better than any other species, and Yujin was telling mostly truth. She was afraid of the Corvins, and she did want to help, but she also wanted to learn secrets that could benefit her own people. What kind of technology? Tejo asked. Yujin reached into one of her robe pockets and pulled out a small device that glowed with soft green light. Shield generators that could protect your settlements from orbital bombardment. Weapons that could damage Corvin ship hulls. Communication systems that could coordinate defenses across multiple worlds. And in exchange? Kithara asked. I want to study the bonding process, Yujin said. I want to understand how human minds can link with dragon consciousness. My people believe this knowledge could help us develop new forms of telepathic communication. Tejo looked at Kithara, then at Boram. We do not have much time to decide. The Corvin ships will start their attack soon. Through the cave opening, they could see the first signs of the invasion beginning. Bright lights were moving in the sky as the enemy ships took up positions around the planet. Soon they would begin scanning for valuable resources and planning their assault. There is something else you should know, Yujin said quietly. The Corvins are not just after the metal and minerals on your world. They have detected unusual energy readings from this mountain. They know a dragon is here. Kithara's eyes blazed with anger. They dare to hunt dragons again? What do you mean again? Tejo asked. Dragons were nearly wiped out in the same war that destroyed the human empire. Kithara explained. The allied species decided we were too dangerous to exist. They hunted us across the galaxy until only a few dozen remained. So they will not be content to just strip the planet, Yujin said. They will try to capture or kill you, and they will try to study your bond with the human boy. Daeho felt cold fear but also hot anger. The same species that had destroyed his people's great civilization were now coming to finish the job. They wanted to take everything humans had built on this small world, and they wanted to kill the one dragon who had shown him kindness. What do we do? Boram asked. Daeho stood up straighter. The blue glow in his eyes became brighter. We fight back. We show them that humans and dragons together are stronger than they remember. The settlements cannot fight a whole fleet, Yujin warned. Then we will have to teach them how, Daeho said. We will have to remind them what they used to be. Kythera spread her great wings. It is time, little guardian. Time to see if the bond between our species is strong enough to face the darkness that destroyed us before. Outside the cave, the first Corvin ships were entering the planet's atmosphere. The real test was about to begin. The Corvin ships fell from the sky like metal rain. Their engines screamed as they cut through the air, heading straight for the human settlements. From the dragon's cave, Daeho could see the bright flashes of their weapons lighting up the horizon. They are not waiting, Kythera said urgently. They are attacking all the colonies at once. Daeho grabbed his pack and the weapons Yujin had given him. We have to get down there. People are dying. Wait, Yujin called after him. You cannot fight an entire invasion fleet by yourself. Even with dragon powers, you are still just one person. Then I will have to be enough, Daeho replied, running toward the cave entrance. Kythera spread her wings. Climb onto my back, little guardian. It is time for the galaxy to remember what dragons can do. Daeho had never flown on a dragon before. As Kythera leaped from the cliff and soared into the sky, he felt like his stomach was trying to escape through his mouth. But the feeling of flying was also amazing. The wind rushed past his face, and the whole world spread out below them like a map made real. Boram and Yujin followed in the alien's small ship. It was sleek and fast, but it looked tiny next to the massive Corvin warships that were landing near New Sol Colony. From the air, Daeho could see the battle clearly. The Corvin soldiers were pouring out of their ships like angry insects. They wore thick armor and carried weapons that shot beams of red energy. The human defenders were fighting back with mining tools and hunting rifles, but they were badly outnumbered. Look at them, Kythera said as they flew closer. The Corvins think this will be easy. They expect the humans to run and hide, but the humans were not running. Daeho could see Nari helping to set up barricades near the colony gates. Her father, Hyun-Soo, was leading a group of miners in a charge against Corvin soldiers. Even elder, Jaemin was firing an old plasma rifle from behind an overturned transport vehicle. They are braver than I expected, Daeho said with pride. They are fighting for their homes, Kythera replied. That makes anyone brave. But bravery alone will not be enough. A Corvin fighter ship spotted them and opened fire. Beams of energy crackled through the air around Kythera, but the dragon twisted and rolled with impossible grace. None of the shots hit them. My turn, Kythera said. The dragon opened her mouth and breathed a stream of blue fire that was hotter than the center of a star. The Corvin fighter melted like ice in summer heat. It fell from the sky in burning pieces. On the ground, both human and Corvin soldiers stopped fighting for a moment to stare up at the dragon. Many of the Corvins had never seen a real dragon before. They had only heard stories about creatures that could burn entire fleets to nothing. Kythera landed in the middle of the battlefield with a sound like thunder. Her huge claws dug furrows in the dirt. Her wings spread wide, casting shadows over friend and enemy alike. Daeho jumped down from her back. He was no longer the small, weak boy who had been cast out months ago. His body moved with liquid grace. His eyes glowed with inner fire. In his hands he carried weapons that hummed with dragon magic. Humans of New Sol. He called out in a voice that carried across the entire battlefield. Do you remember me? Elder Jaemin stared at him with wide eyes. Daeho, but we sent you away to die. How are you alive? You sent away a weak boy, Daeho replied. But I came back as something else. I came back as your guardian. A group of Corvin soldiers charged at them, firing their energy weapons. Daeho moved faster than their eyes could follow. He dodged between the beams of light like they were standing still. His dragon weapons cut through their armor like it was made of paper. But Deho was not trying to kill all the enemies by himself. That was not the point. Instead, he was showing the human defenders what was possible. He was showing them that the Corvins could be beaten. "Fight," he shouted to the colonists. "Fight like your ancestors fought. Show them that humans do not bow down to bullies." His words seemed to wake something up inside the people of New Sol. They had been fighting defensively, just trying to survive. But now they began to attack. They worked together like they never had before. Miners used their tools to break Corvin weapons. Engineers turned mining equipment into powerful weapons. Even the old people and children helped by carrying supplies and tending to the wounded. Nari ran up to Daiho during a break in the fighting. Her face was dirty, and there was a cut on her cheek, but her eyes were shining with excitement. "I cannot believe you came back," she said. "And with a dragon. A real dragon." "I promised myself I would protect you," Daiho said, "even after you and your people threw me away." "We were wrong," Nari said, tears running down her face. "We were so wrong about you. Can you forgive us?" Before Daiho could answer, more Corvin ships landed. These were bigger ships carrying heavy weapons and battle mechs. The metal giants were 3 times taller than a person and armed with cannons that could blow holes in solid rock. "The real fight is just starting," Kithara warned. Admiral Torvek, the leader of the Corvin fleet, had been watching the battle from his command ship in orbit. He was a veteran of 100 conquered worlds, and he had never seen humans fight like this before. Usually they surrendered after the first attack or ran away to hide in caves. "What is that creature?" he asked his tactical officer, looking at images of Kithara on his view screen. "It appears to be a dragon, sir," the officer replied. "Our records show they were thought to be extinct." "And the human fighting beside it?" "Unknown, sir. But he is moving faster than our sensors can track properly, and those weapons he carries are unlike anything in our databases." Admiral Torvek's eyes narrowed. The Corvins had not become the galaxy's greatest military power by underestimating their enemies. If there was a dragon and a mystery human working together, they represented a threat that had to be eliminated quickly. "Deploy the planet killers," he ordered. "We will burn this world to ash and sort through the valuable minerals later." "But, sir," the tactical officer said, "we have ground forces down there. They are expendable," the admiral replied coldly. "The dragon and its human pet are not." In space above the planet, massive weapons began to charge up. They could destroy cities from orbit, turning stone and metal into clouds of glowing gas. The colonists on the surface had no idea what was coming, but Kithara felt the energy building in the enemy ships. Through their bond, she shared her alarm with Daiho. "They are preparing to destroy everything," she told him. "My fire can protect small areas, but not the whole planet. And using that much power will kill me." Daiho looked around at all the people fighting bravely against impossible odds. He saw Nari helping wounded soldiers. He saw her little brother Taewu carrying water to the fighters. He saw Elder Jamin organizing the defense of the colony's children. These people had cast him aside when times were hard. They had sent him to die in the desert, but they were still his people. They were still worth saving. "Do it," he told Kithara. "Use your power to protect them. I will find another way to stop the ships. If I do this, the bond between us will be broken forever," the dragon warned. "You will lose your enhanced abilities. You will go back to being an ordinary human." Daiho smiled. "Maybe, but I have learned something important from you. Real strength does not come from magic powers or dragon bonds. It comes from choosing to protect others even when they do not deserve it." Kithara looked at her bonded partner with great pride. "You have become a true guardian, little one. Very well. Let us show the galaxy what sacrifice looks like." The dragon spread her wings and began to glow with the light of a small sun. Above them, the Corvin planet killers were almost ready to fire. The final test had begun. The sky above Kareth Prime turned white as Kithara began to pour all her life force into a protective shield. The dragon's copper scales became brighter and brighter until she looked like a second sun floating above the battlefield. Energy flowed from her body in waves, creating a dome of blue fire over the entire colony. Daiho felt the dragon's pain through their bond. It was like having his own heart torn in half. Kethra was dying to save people who had never shown her kindness, people who would have run in fear if they had seen her just months before. "You do not have to do this," he said to her through their mental link. "These people cast me out. They do not deserve your sacrifice." "That is exactly why they do deserve it," Kethra replied, her thoughts growing weaker. "Anyone can protect those who are kind to them. True guardians protect everyone, especially those who have made mistakes." The planet-killer weapons fired from the Corvin ships, beams of energy hot enough to melt mountains, struck Kethara's shield. The impact shook the ground and made the air itself scream. But the shield held. The colony and all its people remained safe under the dragon's protection. Admiral Torvek watched from his command ship with growing anger. "Impossible. No single creature should be able to block our most powerful weapons." "Sir," his tactical officer said nervously, "energy readings from the dragon are off our scales, but the creature appears to be dying from the effort." "Good. Keep firing until it falls." On the ground, the human colonists had stopped fighting the Corvin soldiers. Everyone was staring up at the magnificent dragon who was giving her life to protect them. Many people began to cry. Even the Corvin ground troops seemed unsure of what to do. Boram landed Eugen's ship near the battlefield and ran to where Deho stood beneath the dying dragon. "There has to be something we can do," she said desperately. "Some way to help her." Eugen emerged from her ship carrying a device covered in flashing lights. "Actually, there might be," the alien scientist said. "But it is very dangerous and has never been tested." "What is it?" Deho asked. "Dragon consciousness can be transferred," Eugen explained quickly. "When a dragon dies, their mind and memories can pass into their bonded partner. But the human brain is not designed to hold so much information. Most who attempt this are driven mad or die from the overload. But some survive? In theory, yes. If the bond is strong enough and the human mind is flexible enough to adapt." Eugen looked at Daiho seriously. "You would gain all of Kithara's knowledge and power, but you would also carry the weight of her 300 years of memories. You would become something that is neither fully human nor fully dragon." Another wave of planet-killer fire struck the shield. Kithara's light began to flicker. Through their bond, Deho could feel her life slipping away like water through his fingers. "How do we do it?" he asked. "The transfer must happen at the moment of death," Eugen said, "and both dragon and human must choose it willingly. There can be no doubt or fear, or the process will fail." Deho looked up at Kithara, who was still maintaining the shield despite the terrible cost. "My friend, can you hear me?" "Always, little guardian," came the faint reply. "Eugen says we can preserve your consciousness. You can live on through me, but I need to know if that is what you want." There was a long pause before Kithara answered. "I have lived alone for so many years. To continue existing as part of someone I care about, someone who shares my purpose, would be a gift beyond measure. But the choice must be yours. You would be changed forever." Deho thought about his old life as a weak boy who fixed computers. Then he thought about all the people counting on him now. Nari and her family, the other colonists, the billions of beings across the galaxy who needed someone to stand up to bullies like the Corvins. "I accept," he said aloud. Elder Jamin, who had been listening nearby, stepped forward. "Boy, you have already done more than we deserved. You do not need to sacrifice yourself too." "Yes, I do," Deho replied. "This is what guardians do. We put others before ourselves." The shield flickered again. Up in space, the Corvin ships were charging their weapons for another massive strike. This time, Kithara would not be able to stop them. "Now!" Eugen shouted, activating her device. Deho reached up and placed his hands on Kithara's glowing scales. Immediately, he felt the dragon's consciousness flowing into his mind like a river of liquid starlight. Memories that were not his own flooded through him. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations. He witnessed the beauty of nebulas being born and the sadness of stars dying. He felt the loneliness of being the last of his kind, and the joy of finding a worthy companion. But most importantly, he felt Kithara's love for all living things. Her desire to protect the small and weak against the large and cruel. Her belief that every creature deserved a chance to grow and become something better. The transfer was agonizing. Deho's human mind stretched to contain knowledge accumulated over centuries. His body changed as dragon power flowed through his cells. His bones became stronger than steel. His eyes blazed with inner fire. His skin took on a faint copper shine. When the process was complete, Kithara's physical form crumbled to ash and blew away on the wind. But her voice still spoke in Deho's mind, now part of him forever. "We are one now, little guardian," she whispered. "Use our power wisely." Deho rose into the air without wings, supported by pure will and dragon magic. He looked up at the Corvan fleet preparing to fire again. In his hands, energy gathered like captured lightning. "Admiral Torvek," he called out, his voice somehow reaching the command ship in space. "You came here to strip this world and kill its people. But you found something you did not expect. You found a dragon, and now you have awakened something even more dangerous." "What is that creature?" Admiral Torvek demanded, staring at the being that floated in space without a ship. "I am human and dragon," Deho replied. "I am the child of two species that you tried to destroy. I am everything you fear about the galaxy's future." The young guardian raised his hands. Energy that had been building inside him since the moment of transfer erupted outward. But instead of destroying the Corvan ships, it did something far more clever. It took control of their computers. Every weapon on every Corvan ship turned to target other Corvan ships. Their own planet killers began charging up to fire on their own fleet. Their navigation systems went crazy, sending ships spinning out of control. "Impossible," Admiral Torvek gasped. "How is he controlling our entire fleet?" "Dragons know technology that your species has not even imagined," Deho said. His voice was calm but filled with power. "And humans know how to use that technology in ways dragons never thought of. Together, we are more than the sum of our parts." On the planet's surface, the human colonists watched in amazement as their former outcast took control of the entire invasion fleet. The Corvan ground troops threw down their weapons and surrendered. They knew they could not fight someone who could command their own ships. Nari looked up at Deho, floating in the sky like a star made flesh. "What has he become?" she whispered. Boram smiled through her tears. "He has become what he always was inside. A protector, a guardian, someone who puts others before himself." Yujin was busy taking readings with her instruments. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The fusion of human adaptability with dragon knowledge has created something entirely new. Something that should not be possible according to our understanding of biology and consciousness." "We should run tests," one of her assistants suggested. "No," Yujin said firmly. "Some miracles should be left alone to work their magic." In space, Admiral Torvek made one last desperate attempt to regain control of his fleet. "All ships prepare to ram the creature. We will not let this abomination live." But his ships would not obey. Deho had complete control over every system. Instead of attacking, the entire Corvan fleet began to retreat. Their engines carried them away from Korath Prime and back toward their own territory. "This is not over," Admiral Torvek broadcast on all frequencies. "The Corvan Empire will not forget this humiliation." "Good," Deho replied. "Tell your empire about the human boy they thought was weak. Tell them about the dragon they thought was extinct. Tell them that some things in this galaxy should not be pushed too far." As the last Corvan ship disappeared into hyperspace, Deho slowly descended to the ground. The colonists gathered around him, no longer afraid but filled with wonder and gratitude. He was no longer the small, weak boy they had cast out. But he was also no longer fully human. He was something new, something that carried the best of both species within him. The real test would be what he chose to do with that power. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Korath Prime. The human colony of New Sol looked completely different now. Where once there had been simple metal buildings and dirt roads, now there were structures that seemed to grow from the ground itself. The buildings were made from a new material that Deho had created by combining dragon knowledge with human engineering. They were stronger than steel but light as air. Children played in gardens that floated above the ground without any support. Water flowed uphill through pipes that bent space itself. The air was cleaner, the food was better, and nobody went hungry or sick anymore. But the biggest change was in the people themselves. Nari stood in the communication center, talking to representatives from 12 different star systems. She wore a headset that translated her words into dozens of alien languages. Her job was to coordinate trade agreements and cultural exchanges between species that had never trusted each other before. "The Zenthari delegation will arrive next Tuesday," she told her assistant, a young man named Jinwoo, who had once been too shy to speak in public. "Make sure we have proper accommodations for their environmental needs." Through the window, Nari could see Deho working with a group of new students in the training yard. There were humans, but also Zenthari, Corvins who had defected from their empire, and even some species she had never seen before. All of them were learning to use technologies that combined the best ideas from multiple civilizations. Deho looked older now, though he was still only 17 in human years. His eyes glowed softly with inner fire, and his movements had the fluid grace of something that was more than human. But when he smiled at his students or helped someone who was struggling, he was still the same kind boy who had been cast out into the desert. "Master Deho," called one of his students, a young Corvin named Brix whose family had fled the Empire after witnessing the Battle of Korath Prime. "I still cannot make the energy flow properly through the crystal matrix." Deho walked over to help him. "Remember, it is not about force," he said gently. "The crystal wants to work with you, not against you. Feel its natural rhythm and match your energy to it." Brix tried again, and this time the crystal began to glow with steady blue light. The other students cheered and clapped for him. "See?" Deho said. "The power was always inside you. I just helped you find it." That evening, Deho sat on a hill overlooking the colony. The twin moons were rising, casting silver light over the peaceful settlement. In his mind, he could still hear Kithara's voice, now a permanent part of his consciousness. "You have done well, little guardian," she whispered in his thoughts. "Look what you have built from the ashes of war." "We built it together," Deho replied silently. "Your wisdom and my stubbornness made a good combination." Boram climbed up the hill to join him. She carried a datapad showing reports from across the galaxy. As Deho's chief administrator, she helped manage the growing network of people who looked to Korath Prime for guidance. "The Rigel system wants to know if we can help them deal with pirates," she said, sitting down beside him. "The Vegan colonies are asking for medical technology, and the Council of Independent Worlds wants to invite you to speak at their annual assembly. What do you think?" Deho asked. He had learned to value Boram's practical wisdom. She saw problems and solutions that his dragon-enhanced mind sometimes missed. "I think you are becoming exactly what the galaxy needs," she said. "Not a conqueror or a ruler, but a teacher. Someone who shows others how to be better than they thought they could be." The next morning brought a surprise visitor. Elder Jamin, now much older and grayer than before, came to see Deho in his workshop. The old man walked slowly with a cane, but his eyes were bright and alert. "I wanted to thank you again," Jamin said, "and to apologize one more time for what we did to you." Deho looked up from the device he was building, a new type of medical scanner that could detect diseases before symptoms appeared. "You do not need to keep apologizing, Elder. You made the best decision you could with the information you had." "No," Jamin said firmly. "We were afraid, and fear made us cruel. We judged you by your size and strength instead of your character. That was wrong, and I will carry the shame of it until I die." "Then carry something else instead," Deho suggested. "Carry the knowledge that even good people can make mistakes and that those mistakes can become the foundation for something better." Jamin smiled. "You have become wiser than any of us ever expected." "I had a good teacher," Deho replied, thinking of Kithara. That afternoon, a delegation arrived from the Corvin Empire. They came in a single ship under a flag of truce. Their leader was Admiral Torvek himself, the same man who had tried to destroy Korath Prime. The colonists were nervous about meeting their former enemy, but Deho insisted on welcoming the delegation personally. He met them at the spaceport, accompanied only by Nari and Boram. Admiral Torvek looked much older than he had 6 months ago. The defeat at Korath Prime had cost him his position and his pride. He was no longer the confident conqueror who had come to strip mine a helpless world. "I have come to ask for your help," he said without any of his former arrogance. "What kind of help?" Deho asked. "The Empire is falling apart," Torvek explained. "When word spread about how a single human-dragon hybrid defeated our entire fleet, other worlds began to rebel. Our own soldiers are deserting. The government is collapsing. And you want me to help you restore order?" "No," the Admiral said, surprising everyone. "I want you to help us build something better. The Corvin people are not evil, just misguided. We have been taught that strength comes from conquest, but you showed us a different kind of strength. The strength to protect rather than destroy." Deho studied the former Admiral carefully. Through his enhanced senses, he could tell that the man was sincere. The defeat had changed him, made him question everything he had believed about power and leadership. "What are you proposing?" Deho asked. "A new government?" A council of representatives from all the worlds in our territory, democratic elections instead of military rule, and an end to the practice of strip mining inhabited planets. That is a big change, Boram said skeptically. How do we know the Corvin military will accept it? Because many of our best officers have been studying what you accomplished here, Torvek replied. They have seen that cooperation produces better results than conquest. They want to learn your methods. Over the following weeks, delegations arrived from across the galaxy. The Zenthari Trade Federation wanted to establish permanent embassies. The Rigel Defense Force wanted to learn new tactics. Even species that had been enemies for centuries were sitting down together to discuss peace treaties. Yu Jin, the Zenthari scientist who had helped during the invasion, had established a research station on Korath Prime. She was studying how different species could work together, using the human-dragon bond as a model for future cooperation. What we have discovered here changes everything, she told Deho during one of their regular meetings. The old idea that species must compete for resources and territory is obsolete. When different kinds of minds work together, they can solve problems that none of them could handle alone. That was always Cathara's message, Deho said. Unity makes everyone stronger. 1 year after the battle, Deho stood before the first Galactic Council of Peace. Representatives from over 100 worlds had gathered to discuss creating a new kind of civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. I'm not here as a ruler or a conqueror, he told the assembled delegates. I am here as a reminder of what we can become when we choose to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. He gestured to the mixed group of his students who had accompanied him. Humans, Corvins, Zenthari, and dozens of other species stood together as friends and colleagues. My teacher, the dragon Cathara, used to say that the strongest trees are not the ones that stand alone, but the ones that grow in forests where their roots intertwine and support each other. That is what we must become. Not a collection of separate species competing for dominance, but a forest of civilizations helping each other reach for the stars. The Council voted unanimously to establish the Galactic Alliance, with Korath Prime as its first headquarters. Trade barriers were lowered, military conflicts were replaced with diplomatic negotiations, and resources were shared more fairly among all member worlds. But perhaps the most important change was in how species saw each other. The old prejudices based on size, strength, or technology began to fade. Instead, beings were judged by their character and their willingness to help others. As the years passed, Deho traveled throughout the galaxy, always accompanied by students who were learning to become guardians themselves. He never set himself up as a ruler or demanded worship. Instead, he taught others to find their own inner strength and use it to protect those who needed protection. Nari eventually became the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. Boram founded a school for administrators who wanted to learn how to run peaceful governments. Even Admiral Torvek found a new purpose as a teacher of military ethics, showing young officers that true strength comes from defending the innocent rather than conquering the weak.